Hello and welcome to May the Review Be With You. I am Joe.
I'm Nick.
And we're doing a fast one today because we're talking about Madam Web. And we've got a few quick points that we wanted to make on this movie before everyone is done talking about it, because I don't see this one sticking around in the conversation for very long. This movie is getting a lot of talk right now, but again, I don't think that talk is going to last very long because the majority of the conversation has been, we are not happy with what we saw. Nick, how you doing? You just saw Madam Web today.
Yeah, I did. I'm coming off of I walked out of the theater 2 hours ago, so it's pretty fresh. The nice thing about walking into a theater with extremely low expectations is it's really hard to break below that barrier. Mm-hmm. And so I actually don't think it was worse than I was expecting, just because the reviews had been pretty terrible and a lot of the talk online has not been great, which means probably in the next 4 or 5 days, no one's really going to be talking about it anymore, which is fine. I found it adequately not good and on par with how bad I was expecting it to be. Although I did enjoy parts. I think that the Flash was still worse in my mind. I was thinking during this film, I was like, man, this film's going to make me rewatch The Flash just so I can be sure that what I'm thinking is correct and that The Flash is still worse than this movie. So I actually might have to go rewatch The Flash now because I still think it was worse. But I don't know how it's hard to say that that's even true or possible. So I don't know. Not a great showing. Not a great showing.
No, I actually had a very similar reaction to you because so walking into Madam Web, there was a lot of negative buzz about this movie, and one of the things that I had heard about it is that it is a boring film. I can say a lot about Madam Web. One thing I am actually thankful to say is that I was not bored during this movie, and I think I came into it with a similar expectation as you, as walking in and thinking that this was going to be significantly worse. And it wasn't. That doesn't mean that it was good or that I liked it, but it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. And if you look at the Rotten Tomato scores right now, there is a disconnect between audiences and critics. Yeah, but it's not really a good disconnect. I think right now, as of the end of the box office weekend, critics have a score of 13%. And audiences are at about 55. So significantly better, but still rotten, still bad.
Right, still bad. But that's a huge gap. That's a ridiculous gap between audience and critic score. And I know we'll do scores at the end, but I'm probably somewhere in the middle, I don't think it was 13% bad. It certainly wasn't 50% good either. So yeah, anyway, but we'll get to the scores and stuff, but that's a great point about that disconnect as well. And there's a point in this movie too where, and I knew this was the point, and I don't know if we want to start with that, but there was a point in this movie where I specifically, while the scene was happening, I was like, okay, this is the turning point where it really gets bad. And I wrote it down to double check later if I was correct. And I think I think I'm right. I want to get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
Cool. Cool. You're right. We got to do something first. And that, of course, is the 15-second summary.
Oh, so bad.
Nick, you should be so good at this. You just saw it 2 hours ago. I'm going to get a stopwatch ready for us. Nick, how are we feeling?
I'm feeling like I hope I get a premonition on how this goes so I can redo it. That's how I'm feeling.
Alrighty. So for those who don't know, Nick has 15 seconds to summarize the entirety of this movie the best that he can. And I'll give him a grade at the end on how he did. So Nick, you ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. On 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go.
Madam Web is a paramedic who falls into the water and almost dies and gets premonition powers that she was passed on to from her mother from the Amazon jungle. And she uses those powers to see the future to then change the present that she is in. And she has to save 3 girls
Stop.
who will...
Stop.
Blah, blah,
Stop.
blah, 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 blah.
You know, something
That was the worst summary I've ever done.
So yeah, no, for sure.
That was the worst summary I've ever done.
For sure. You didn't even get out of Act 1. You were just like, it was like you saw the book cover of a book report and you were just like, yes, where the red fern grows. It's about a fern that's red and it grows.
I just didn't have it in me. Part of me was thinking I should just stop doing the summary and just say, don't go see the movie instead of doing a summary.
Would you say that to somebody? Would you like legitimately like don't watch the movie, or would you say like don't pay for the movie?
Well, I mean, it's 2 hours. So technically you might not be paying with it in cash, but you are paying with it for your time. So I guess it depends on the person I'm talking to. Yeah, I don't know. I think that if you have superhero fever like we do and it's free, why not? But if you're like, if you haven't seen the last 3 or 4 superhero films, then like just don't waste your time. Basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's my thought process overall on it. Like, I hope they don't make a second one.
I can't imagine that they will, but like, hey, we got as far as making a Madam Web movie. Maybe I'm wrong. But before we move on, I do have to grade you because we did forget to do that last time.
That was so bad.
Nick, you know, it's a bad movie, so like, I don't want to give you a bad score because like, screw this. But like, also, the assignment was summarize the movie, and I'm sorry, you didn't really get past the book cover.
Blah, blah,
I'm giving you a D- on this one, which
Yeah,
I think is my
good.
lowest grade I've given you.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the worst summary I've ever done. Usually I'm pretty good at these.
You are usually pretty good at these. Yeah.
I honestly, I don't think I've fully like decompressed from from the movie yet. That's probably part of the issue. I've not done a full debrief. That's what this episode is for. So.
Yeah, that's true. We're gonna walk you through the emotions.
Anyway, how do you want to tackle this? We've got 20 minutes left of this. Like we're doing 22 more minutes of this, and then we're moving on. So there's a timer on this episode.
Yeah, since we're trying to keep this one brief and quick, I think we can just go into let's start with what didn't work, what did not work for us, right? And then we'll jump into toward the end here anything redeeming about the movie.
Great. Yeah. All right. I would love it if you would start.
Sure. Okay. Something that did not work for me in this movie: the concept of a Madam Web movie. It's a bad concept.
Jesus
so
Christ.
real quick on this. Okay, so
Real quick. Here comes a
real
5-minute rant.
quick. Okay, so I don't know how many people are familiar with this character. This character, to my knowledge, like their mainstream introduction was through the 90s Spiderman cartoon, in which she is voiced by, fun fact, Joan Lee, who was the wife of Stan Lee, which is super cool. Stan Lee is also in that cartoon. Anyway, totally different story. Madam Web is, you know, a future teller, right? She's a precog, right? So she works best as a supporting character, not really like someone who has enough weight to like move their own narrative. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but like just the very like value of the character, it's a bit weird to like center this entire movie around her. I don't know. From what I got from interviews, Sony actually said that she was their Doctor Strange, which may tell you a lot about what they're thinking.
No, please.
Oh yeah,
please. We don't.
They have plans. I think they're gonna, because they just keep doing stuff like this, right? Like Morbius. Later this year, we're getting Kraven the Hunter, and like I'm a big Spider-Man fan. There are a lot of big Spider-Man fans out there. I don't know anyone who is craving these movies.
I think that like if they did them better, it would be okay, right? Like, but like there's something to be said for like the person that wrote this film. They also wrote Morbius, excuse me.
Morbius, yes.
Morbius, and a couple others that have just done so poorly, right? It's just like, why do you keep hiring the same people who like clearly the audience doesn't like what they're doing, right? Like the critics and the audiences are like not liking films from the person who did the writing on this. It's just like why do you keep hiring them? There's got to be other writers in the world who like have other takes and other stories that can be told better, that are going to connect more with audiences. Like this was just not, it just wasn't there. And it was boring many times too. Like there were times that was like, okay, there's action going on. It's at least like exciting or whatever, but there were also boring moments or just in general moments where you're just like, okay, like I guess I'll take my phone out in the theater real quick while this scene's going on. Like, you know, like I shouldn't do that.
I almost brought my Nintendo Switch with me because I was like, I have a feeling I'm going to be really bored during this. I couldn't actually do it though. I was like, I can't be that disrespectful during a movie. Like, why even bother going if that's what you're going to do?
Right. Exactly.
But I considered it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I don't even remember what the point we were making because I just went on a second rant from wherever you were.
Mostly that if Sony is going to commit to these like fringe characters, like at least create a competent script, right?
Right.
And you're right. I mean, that's something that's been consistent with these two movies, right? And it's from what I've understood from interviews with like Dakota Johnson, there were a lot of different redrafts of this script. So it seems like whatever the final product that we got, it's not what was originally intended. And like you can tell too, I mean, like a lot of the themes in this movie are like clashing around. There's so much retroactive added lines, like a lot of dubbing, like
oh my god.
Half the movie is that.
This is a huge problem. This is a huge problem. So I tried not to read too much about Madam Web over the last couple of days because we hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, okay. So like, I hadn't read anything about the dubbing. I noticed like in the first 30 to 45 minutes, I was like, wait, are they overdubbing Ezekiel's voice? And then I started looking and I was like, holy shit, the whole thing is dubbed. Like his lips are not moving at like any of the scenes. And whenever he is talking, they are being very conscious to not put him on screen when he's talking. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then, of course, I looked it up afterwards, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I wasn't crazy. They totally redubbed his voice after filming, and it is obvious. Like, I am sitting in a theater, and it is an obvious overdub for the whole film. I was like, how is this the product that you were putting in theaters and letting people pay for? It's unbelievable. Like, people should actually be pissed that they're paying money to go see a film that was literally just overdubbed because, whatever they did originally just didn't work.
Right.
Like,
it doesn't feel like it is a movie that, like you said, like it's made ready for theaters. Like this feels like a draft of a movie.
Right. It's like, this is the movie you show the actors so they can kind of have an idea of what they're supposed to do. And then you got to go actually film it, like, you know, with the words correct. But no, we get overdubbed. Unbelievable.
Since you brought the topic of Ezekiel, I do want to talk about the character or the lack of character that is represented in this movie. What is I don't understand Ezekiel. Like, what was even the idea of this character? So like, you know, he wants to kill the 3 teenage girls because like they're eventually going to kill him, so he thinks, because he also has sort of precog abilities, but like not nearly as good as Webb's, right? Which I'm gonna get back to the name on that in a second, but his whole like, why does he want power? Like, we don't know. He just wants power because power. Like, that's his whole character. Is I want power and I want to keep power.
Yeah, it's like I come from nothing and I want ultimate power. But then he gets it.
Right. Yeah, right. And what are you
beginning
doing
of the movie?
It?
Like, he gets it. He lives in this beautiful penthouse. Still has a spider.
Right.
Like, what else do you want? Well, what he wants is he's
Right.
been having the same dream since he got the powers, that these three spider women are going to kill him one day, and so he's obsessed with finding them so that he can kill them first. And like this is because he's been cursed, right? Like we find out later in the movie that like, oh, because he took the power by force, like he's been cursed forever. So like clearly the curse is him having this recurring nightmare, and it is driving him to actually go kill these girls, which is then leading him on a path to meet Madam Web, which in turn, is the curse, like cursing him and being like, oh, actually you're cursed. Like this is a fake dream. If you would have just left it alone, you'd have been fine. That kind of shit. But it's just not set up well, and it's forced. But like that's not even like my biggest gripe with the film.
But
Like
hang on,
I actually
before you get to it, hang on.
Yeah.
'Cause, like, let me ask you a question.
sure.
So I can point out the whole problem with this character with one question to you. Why does he have a costume? Like what's it for? Like what does he do? Right? Like what does he rob banks? Does he assassinate people? What does he do? What is his costume for? What is he? What is he doing? I don't know. All of a sudden there's just a spider dude who's just running around trying to kill these girls. Like, what's going on?
Man, I hadn't even got to the point about questioning the costume. I was just like, okay, I mean, yeah, he's got a costume.
Right. Bad guy needs costume.
Sure. Bad guy needs costume. I was actually going to comment on his costume being kind of cool looking.
Oh, it is cool looking.
It's
Yeah.
very cool looking.
Yeah, it kind of like reminds me of like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man a little bit. You think? I was thinking specifically because of like his eyes.
Yeah,
There's something
because
about like
eyes,
his
yeah.
eyes that were very like Maguire.
I just love the dark features on the Spider-Man
Oh,
suit.
yeah.
We don't get that very much. So like that,
No, it's
it's a cool suit. It's a sick suit.
What's cooler,
Um,
Ezekiel's suit or Tobey Maguire's Venom suit?
I can't even picture Tobey Maguire's Venom suit. It's been so long since I've seen it.
It's because it's bland. It's not very exciting. That's why you can't picture
Yeah,
it.
okay. Well, there you go. Well, then Ezekiel. Listen, you can't talk to me about Spider-Man 3 from Tobey Maguire, okay? Like that movie doesn't exist in my brain. It's for mental health purposes, okay?
Which
That
movie would
movie's
you
not
rather
real.
watch, Madam Web or Spider-Man 3?
On it, Madam Web.
Really? Oh man. Oh no, I would much rather watch Spider-Man 3.
Have you when's the last time you watched Spider-Man 3? Because
It has been like an actual decade since I've probably seen
okay,
that
well,
movie.
you need to go hit play on that movie, because that scene, that movie opens with like the scene where like Mary Jane's like at the theater and like Peter's like sitting there
No,
watching
I remember
her.
it's bad.
Yeah. The last time I tried to watch that movie was maybe 6 months ago, because I hadn't watched it in like a decade. I shut it off 2 minutes into that scene. That's how terrible that movie is.
But
I would actually rather watch Madam Web than Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3. I am dead serious.
see, I can't say that because here's the thing: as bloated as that movie is, as ridiculous as that movie is, there is a coherent plot. Most of the characters have motivations that exist. I don't know if they make sense, but they exist. And you know what? I'll summarize it with this: Topher Grace. He's our bad guy with a very similar suit to Ezekiel, right? The Venom suit. He states his motivation. He just likes to be bad. He says that at one point, right? I just like to be bad. Like, all right, at least it's motivation. I understand where this bland, boring character's coming from.
We'll have to revisit this topic when you try to rewatch Spider-Man 3, I think. But also, I don't know if I could get through Madam Web again. Like, if I put it on for 5 more minutes from the beginning, I might have the same reaction. So I don't know. That's probably unfair to Tobey Maguire, but I don't care at the moment. I'm, anyway. Where were we? Joe,
Oh.
we only have 7 minutes left. We only have 7 minutes left.
No, we didn't start until the 6th minute of this recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we have 13 minutes left then.
Yeah.
So, all right. Honestly, forgot what we were. What were we talking? Like we're on the Ezekiel part. His suit
Yeah,
is
we were
cool.
talking about Ezekiel.
I
You
like
have
the
a good gripe
costume
now.
design. I like the costume design of the what is their name? The Amazon, the people in the Amazon.
Oh,
who-
La Arañas.
Like I really liked their costume design too. That was really cool. I like the whole set when they're in that pool. like that whole little world. I wish they would have expanded on that lore a little bit more, because that was probably one of the more interesting parts of the movie for me, was like that whole lore. Plus, if they would have expanded on it a little bit better, I might have not have thought that the end of the movie, when she like, you know, basically is in 3 places at once. So I maybe wouldn't have thought that was as ridiculous as it was if they would have maybe expanded on the lore a little bit more about the spider and the powers, but they didn't. So when that happened at the end, I was like, sure, why not? Okay, Sony, just go right ahead. So stupid.
So I do want to make a comment here on the acting in this movie. I can't tell if it's because of poor editing choices, they were poor casting choices, they were bad line reads, or it's bad acting. I don't know, but for some reason, most of this movie feels like everyone's first time acting ever. That's all I really have to say on it. It's just like, it just feels bad, with the exception of, and I forgot about this character until just now, with the exception of Adam Scott playing Uncle Ben. He's the only like redeeming part of this movie, but like also at the same time, like, why is he even in this movie? Why is Adam Scott in this movie? And like, why is Ben Parker in this movie?
Yeah, it was super random to see him in this film. Like, but I actually liked him and Dakota's on-screen chemistry, like in the beginning, before.
Me too.
Before she like, and actually throughout the film, because you know obviously he shows up a little bit later, but they actually had really good on-screen chemistry, and like the dryness of their humor towards each other, like with those characters, actually, like I thought that was fun. Like I enjoyed that. The problem is, like, Madam Web having the dry humor early on didn't help later when she had to be serious about helping these 3 girls and actually having to care about them. And I don't know, they try setting it up like right at the beginning, and when she gets the drawing from the girl whose mom she just saved, and then she like ends up, instead of, she's talking about throwing it away, but she ends up keeping it and putting it in this box. It's like, okay, they're trying to show that she's kind of getting a heart, and then eventually she works her way into like wanting to save these 3 girls later. But it doesn't really work like completely. You know, it doesn't work completely. Like
her being
it's forced.
Like her being heartless is in the beginning is kind of like, maybe heartless is too strong. Her being like socially awkward is super weird in the beginning. Like, why is she a paramedic driver if she has like no bedside manner and does not seem to care for people? like
if you don't care about people, like, why are you doing this job?
Yeah, why are you saving people all the time? It feels like you care about people.
Like, you know, like, is it the rush because you get to drive fast? Is that what's supposed to be? Like, I don't get it. Like, I also didn't love how they like tried to, how like these 3, the 3 girls that she's trying to save halfway through the movie and then through the rest of it, like I didn't. It also felt forced that they like showed us her running into them in 3 different instances beforehand, right? It's just like, what?
I mean, it could work, right? Like if you're trying to make the argument of like, oh, their destinies have always been entwined, right? But like they don't really go for that,
right? They just kind of. They want it to be like by chance, but it's just like, but it's not chance the way that you kind of are trying to set it up for us. So what's the other explanation? Like, I don't know. Like,
there was a lot that this movie like set up that it does not execute properly.
Right.
One that I thought was super weird that they introduced this, and then really did nothing with it, was the whole like 9/11 atmosphere that they were like bringing up with like the whole surveillance thing and like the eagle eye technology that Ezekiel has his assistant using, and she's like, wow, you can monitor and surveil everyone doing anything at any time. Also, for some reason, he also has like generative AI and is able to create almost perfect replications of the faces that like he dreamt up. Like, like, all right, let's say that technology existed in 2003. Fine, sure. What are we trying to say about like this technology that allows you to see everyone and everything? Is there a connection between that and like what Madam Web can do? Is that what you're trying to? I don't know. Like maybe if they were doing something like Minority Report, right, where like he's able to predict what people are going to do with that technology, like that could have been cool, but they don't do anything with it. It's just a useless theme.
Yeah, they used they needed it so that like he could show up at the right time. whenever they show their face. Like it was like it's like purposely put in the movie because they were too lazy to think of another way to write in how is he going to find them. You know, like that's it. Like we'll just make sure he figures out a way to get some like super secret technology where he can just like find anyone. It's like, okay, yeah, well then of course then right.
Not everyone. He can't find Dakota Johnson. He can't find Webb for some reason, even though she took an airplane to South America. I repeat, she left the country. She got into an airport where there are cameras everywhere, and he could not find her.
I mean, that's as big of a plot hole as you can get, right? I mean, like...
That's why the technology existed, for the airports.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. So, that's a huge plot hole. I mean, honestly, there's nothing else to talk about after that. We can just end the episode because it's so ridiculous.
Before we do, there are two things. There are two quick things I wanted to bring up. The first one being why. So don't get me wrong. I know that it's the character's name. Why is the title of this movie Madam Web? No one ever calls her Madam at any given point. Like at any given point, does anyone ever say anything even remote? She doesn't refer to herself that way. Like the character of Madam Web is not in this movie. She's not. I mean, she is, but she's not. You know what I mean? Like she's never actually dubbed.
Right. It's a great point. We only see the Madam Web at the very end,
right?
You know, which. So obviously, the character Madam Web in the comics is in a wheelchair and blind, but that they made her blind and in a wheelchair in the film, did not come through on screen. After she gets her life saved with CPR from the three girls who she taught CPR to 30 minutes before, by the way, which was okay, Sony. That was another moment where I was like, okay, Sony, yeah, sure. Bring back the CPR training so that they actually save her life and she's the one who trained them to do it. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Very sweet moment. Totally unimaginative. But anyway.
I mean,
and then she opens her eyes and she's like, okay, well, she's now blind somehow, probably from the flaming fireball that came through the water, I guess. But then at the end, she's in a wheelchair. I'm like, okay, I guess she's also lost the use of her legs, which they didn't show us at all. We just found that out at the end. All of a sudden, she's also in a wheelchair. Okay, sure.
You know,
if you didn't know Madam Web's character before, you're like, wait, why is she in a wheelchair also?
You know, the climax is the climax is such a bum rush that I forgot to even question why she's paralyzed.
Yeah.
I forgot they didn't actually show us why.
They didn't show us why. Okay, she fell from a very high height into the water. But they didn't really show us the depth of the fall. And based on all of her powers beforehand, it would have been totally reasonable for it to not relate into her being handicapped. So it wasn't clear at all. It was just oh yeah, we forgot she's handicapped in the comics. So we actually, she needs to be in a wheelchair in this scene too. It's they were it's the director was on set and was like, oh wait, shit, we forgot. You're also supposed to be handicapped. We need to put you in a wheelchair for this last scene. Just so we're on point with the comics. And it doesn't matter that we forgot to show how. It's what do we
So my one note about the whole portrayal at the end with her and she's talking to the Trinity, the Spider-Woman Trinity, right?
Yeah.
Which that would be a cool title for a movie, Spider-Woman Trinity. But
no,
she's talking to them and my one note on this is it feels either Dakota Johnson or someone in writing or directing was hey, who's a good precog for you to reference as an actor, right? And everyone agreed You know what was the best part of Game of Thrones? When Bran Stark no longer had a personality at the end of the show. That's who you should try to be. You should try and sound as like airy as possible and just like have no personality whatsoever. Now, for the record, you're also in a wheelchair, so you're just Bran Stark.
Yeah. Madam Web's actually just a three-eyed raven, in case you guys didn't know.
Right. The only thing I was missing was her saying, I'm the three-eyed raven now. I'm the three-eyed spider. And like, actually, Web, spiders have many more eyes than three. Don't know how to count.
No, but three, please. I'll take three. Three is a good
But
number.
there's three of you, and I have three eyes. Get out of here.
Yeah, like, I didn't hate some of the acting. I honestly, I think it's more about the writing and the editing than the acting. I mean, the acting wasn't great, and I think that specifically for the Spider Trinity, I thought that it was mostly uninspired and just they were just kind of there, and they had some lines, but we didn't get enough. The movie. I can't believe I'm saying this. The movie wasn't long enough to be able to give us more origin stories for these extra characters, for these other three characters that are super important to like the whole aspect of the movie. We get one scene where they're all talking about how all their parents aren't around for various reasons. But that scene is nowhere near enough to like understand these characters. And it's just like a throw-in. This movie is like 70% throw-in scenes, so that it can explain the 30% of stuff that happens, but it only explains 10%. Like, it's just not good. It's just not good. It's like they filmed the whole thing and realized that it wasn't good, and then they had to do overdubs and reshoots, or not even reshoots, but more editing to try to make it manageable. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just like, it's a little annoying that this is the product that the studio is going to put out. It's just like, you guys, be better. Like, there's tons of like really talented people in the world, and this is the product that they put out. It's like really disheartening. It's like so ridiculous.
I do want to be like super clear about something. And it's we obviously do not like this movie, right? It was not very good, but there are a lot of people like on the internet. I use the word a lot. I don't know how many there are, but they're loud. These people are loud, who will watch this movie or claim that they watched this movie and go on to say like, like Madam Web, like she's what's wrong with comic book movies today? Like Dakota Johnson ruined superhero movies. Like the whole like MCU crowd, like the people who don't want to see like women be in powerful positions on screen. And our issue with this movie has nothing to do with the feminine energy of this movie, which like I would prefer to see more of. Our issue with this movie is it's not very good. It's not. It's bad. It's bad script. It's bad directing. Yeah. It's bad editing. It's bad camera work. Why is the camera always moving all the time?
I had a headache 5 minutes in. I was like, I'm gonna have to leave if it keeps doing this because like I'm not getting a headache today. Like, no, thank you, Sony. Yeah,
it was
so
very,
bad.
Very hectic camera work.
So ridiculous. Like, and real quick before we wrap this up, because now we're over time here. We're over our 30-minute mark for this friggin' movie. But the scene that I was mentioning earlier, where I was like, this is the moment in the movie. Where,
yes, please.
Because the first like 45 minutes, I was like, okay, I don't hate this. I kind of like it. Like this, we're getting some backstory about what her life is like, before the precog powers, all this stuff, whatever. The first scene when they get to the forest, after she has taken them off the train and saved their lives the first time and puts them all in a taxi, and they're in the taxi and they arrive in the forest and they're all standing there talking. When that scene happened in the theater, I was like, okay, this is the scene. This is the scene where the rest of this movie is going to be ridiculous and not make sense. And this is the moment where like the turning point happens, and it's just like it goes from it's enjoyable so far, not terrible, but this is where it gets like just to the point of no return. And I was right. That was essentially the moment in the film. Like, I think that there's probably a lot of people who got to that forest scene And they're like, I don't understand what all the fuss is about online. So far, it's not good, but it's not like awful, And then the rest of the movie ensues, and that what happens. So that was my thought, and I think that after watching, after going through the rest of the film, when I look back, I was like, yeah, you know what? I think I was right about that. I think that's kind of the moment where it really just kind of takes a turn.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you had if that stood out to you at all, but to me it did.
It does.
But
yeah, when all three like of the young protagonists are just forced to talk about their backstories for like no reason really, like
right,
like yeah, this is bad. This is not good. This is pretty bad.
Good.
Is there, before we give our scores, just to end this on a positive note, is there anything in this movie that you did like? Any scene or any performance that really stands out to you?
So, performance, I guess Adam Scott, I liked him a lot. That was cool. I don't think Dakota Johnson's performance is really that bad. I think that the rest of the cast was worse. So I think it made hers seem better. I don't even think it's the cast's fault. I think it's just a writing problem. The Spider-Man suit was really cool. Ezekiel suit, rather, is really cool. The costume and set design for the Amazon area and the Amazon people, that stuff is really cool. That was well done. The joke at the very beginning when she's at the baby shower and you're supposed to write on like a ticket, like your favorite memory with your mother, and they pull hers out and it's blank. And the mother to be goes like, the mother to be is like, who wrote this? And Madam Web raises her hand and goes, me. And they're like, why is it blank? And she goes, my mother died in childbirth, to the mom who's getting ready to have a baby. Like, oh my God. Like that was fucking hilarious.
I 100% agree with this.
I wrote it down because it was so funny, because I was not expecting it. And it's just like, but that's the dry humor that the character had, at least at the beginning of the film. And she kind of has it throughout. And I think that that's maybe where some of the reviews online are coming from, where they're like, oh, she was like boring or uninspired or whatever. It's like, no, well, I think her character just has this dry humor about her. And I don't think a lot of people like probably understood that, maybe. Or at least it doesn't work on the back half of the film when things get more serious. It just doesn't translate. But early on, the dry humor in that particular scene, my God. Like, I was like, and then they did the scene again because that's when she was getting her premonitions. I'm like, we're watching this twice? We have to go through this twice?
So the complaint I keep seeing is like, oh, she's not likable. Like there's nothing to latch onto, which I agree for the most part. Like there's really not a whole lot to like latch onto for her character. Because similar to Ezekiel, like what is her thing? Like what does she really want in life? But that scene, that worked for me. I was like, this is someone I would love to get to know, because that is hilarious. That is so messed up and so funny. I would love to get to know that person.
Yeah, that was brutal. Yeah, so that's what stood out as far as like memorable or maybe that I enjoyed or funny or whatever. And this was funny, but like for the wrong reason. When she crashes the ambulance through a brick wall on a different level than the street that they were on at the end, I was like, what? like ambulance through brick wall, not even on the same level as this. So, and
it's fine. It's totally fine. Dude, she can give Vin Diesel a run for his money on most ridiculous, like, vehicular action scenes ever.
But this is the problem. This is the problem with that scene, is that they didn't do anything else like that for any other part of the movie. And, like, so it's like another turning point in the film, right? It's just like when you go watch a Fast and Furious movie, you know that you're just going to be watching ridiculous stunts that would never happen in real life, multiple times over, and you don't care because you're there to watch like a really ridiculous and awesome action movie with fast cars and just stupid shit going on. But like this movie, like it tries to kind of keep a level head and like make the action sequences more like, you know, real life believable, I guess, for most of it, more action packed with just like a really strong guy. And then all of a sudden, they're throwing an ambulance through a brick wall on from a second level somehow. And it's just like, okay, but this is like totally outside of the realm of what was possible based on what this film had set up before this scene happened. And now this is happening. I was just like, this is why. That's the problem with the scene, right? It's not that there was a brick. It's not. It's that it was in this movie, and up until that point, the movie didn't really introduce like crazy things like that happening. I'm tired of talking about Madam Web. We should wrap.
I will be quick with my point of what I liked. The only scene that I really like appreciated was when she's going through her flashbacks or like the past, and she's able to have like a spiritual moment with her mother. And like actually like talking to her and saying like what you did worked like that. I actually got a little emotional at that scene, which I did not want to happen. I didn't want to give this movie anything. It was like, screw you, movie, you don't deserve it. But that scene was actually very sweet, and
it did work. It was a nice scene. Yeah, I agree with you. That was a good scene. But again, that scene takes place back in the Amazon, and they're inside. You know, this is her being in that temple, I guess, if you will. And also, I'm just realizing another similarity to Minority Report in that scene, because she's in a pool having this memory, which is exactly what happens in Minority Report with the people who are predicting the future. They're in a pool.
I wonder if we just kind of like hit the nail on the head. Like, if the original script for this movie was supposed to be like less Terminator 2 and like way more like Minority Report,
they're like, what if we did Minority Report but we made it Madam Web?
right. Which, like, you know, like with the bones of like the surveillance from like post 9/11, like it kind of feels like that was at least one of the scripts. One of the scripts was Minority Report.
Yeah, literally just Minority Report crossed out, Madam Web written on there with a few creative changes.
Boom.
And Tom Cruise is not in it, so it's not going to make $200 million at the box office.
This company was trying to rip off Minority Report. They thought we wouldn't notice.
But we did. Well done.
All right, final scores. Nick, what are you giving it?
I mean, I don't remember what I gave The Flash, but I know The Flash score was really low, and this is right on par with that. So this is out of 5. Yeah. So, Jesus, movies out of 5. This is a 1.7.
Nick, so is mine. It's a 1.7.
You can't have the same scores. Pick a different one.
We finally did it.
Did we really? Yeah. Was that really what you were thinking?
Yeah. 1.7.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because I was like, yeah, it's pretty bad. I don't want to give it a 1 because like I wasn't bored. I will only give a movie a 1 if I'm bored. Yeah, so just 1.7. It's fine. Oh, it's not fine. It's actually bad. It's bad.
I think we just like I think we just shut the podcast down now since we both just got the same score movie, right? Like, this is the last episode. Thank you all for joining us on this wonderful 2-year ride. We'll no longer be doing episodes. Don't tune in anymore. There will be nothing. I'm just kidding. We're coming back for more. This is a doubleheader. Good night.
All right. That will do it for us here. Next time we will be continuing our time travel draft, talking about time. Nick's choice for the time travel draft, but that's next time. And until then, may the review be with you.
Peace.